Do you think the box shadow in CSS only has 4 values? Wrong. In fact, it has 6 values. Most developers have never used them all, and the skill of using it can be divided into 3 levels. Shh. In CSS, box shadow is a property used to create a shadow for an element. It helps the interface look more three-dimensional and prominent. Offset X is the first value in box shadow, used to determine the shadow's horizontal offset, with a default value of 0 pixels. If offset X is greater than 0, the shadow will be offset to the right. This offset is equal to the declared value, which is 10 pixels. If offset X is less than 0, the shadow will be offset to the left. The next value is the offsetting. We simply rotate the coordinate axis 90 degrees. The position will now be oriented vertically. If the offsetting value is less than 0, the shadow will be tilted upwards. If the offsetting value is greater than 0, the shadow will be tilted downwards. Unlike offset values, blur has a minimum value of 0 and can only be increased gradually. The higher the value, the more blurred the image becomes. And finally, there are color values. At a basic level, these are sufficient for creating a sophisticated and visually appealing website design. Additionally, we have text shadow for text and drop shadow for transparent background images. This is also the appropriate time to talk about the 5th parameter in box shadow. That is the inset value. Imagine this. The object and the shadow created will form cut lines. By default, the cut part outside the element will become the shadow. However, if you use inset, the cut part used as the shadow is the cut part inside the element, while the movement of the X and Y offsets remains unchanged. In practice, it would look like this. In the box element, I declared the box shadow property to create a shadow effect. The inset value is used to cast the shadow inwards, shifted 5 pixels to the right and 5 pixels downwards. Because of the use of inset, the cutout area inside has been used as the shadow. But it doesn't stop there. I create another shadow with the direction facing upwards, and again because of inset, the shadow will be inside. This is the new morphism style, one of the unique and famous design styles in the world. Similarly, you can add many inset shadows to a single element to create significant differences, like this. We'll now look at the 6th parameter in CSS's box shadow. It's actually always there with a default value of 0 pixels. When I increase its value, the shadow size will increase by the declared value. And notably, it accepts values less than 0, in which case it will decrease in size compared to the original size. Let's try analyzing some real-world situations we may have encountered without realizing it. When you receive this design, we would typically analyze it as follows. This is the main element. This main element will contain a black border. Outside the main element is a parent element with a white background. Finally, this parent element has a black box shadow. But clearly, this parent element contains nothing other than the main element. So creating an additional parent element in this case is redundant. According to the problem statement, we already have the main element. Now, let's create a black border. Now, instead of creating a white parent element, I'll use a box shadow. This box shadow will be 10 pixels larger than the main element and will be white. Then let's create another shadow with blur to create a shadow behind it. As you can see, I didn't need to create a parent element for this case. I might not even need to use a border. I'll create a black shadow that's 1 pixel larger than the main element right here. That's it. When you master box shadows, you can solve many common problems much more easily than with traditional methods. And that's the final part of today's video. Goodbye everyone, see you in the next interesting video.